A cool, misty evening draped itself over the towering spires of Hogwarts' School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Deep within the castle, winding corridors twisted like an elaborate maze, each turn revealing shifting staircases and enchanted paintings murmuring secrets from ages past. Tonight, however, our journey does not lead us to the bustling Gryffindor common room or the tranquil Ravenclaw tower. Instead, our steps take us downward, where the flickering torchlight dances upon the damp stone walls. The air grows cooler, tinged with the faint scent of crushed herbs and something more elusive, a trace of something unknown, something hidden. This path leads to the underground chambers, where the shadows are deeper and the corridors hold an eerie stillness. At the end of one such passage lies a heavy, dark wooden door, its iron handle worn smooth by the countless students who have turned it before. This is Professor Snape's classroom, the very heart of Hogwarts's potions curriculum, a place where mysteries simmer just as potently as the brews in the cauldrons within. Stepping inside, the dim light flickers from candles perched atop twisted wrought iron holders, casting long, spindly shadows on the stone walls. Shelves line the room, stacked with glass jars filled with curious ingredients, dried roots, iridescent scales, murky liquids that glowed faintly when disturbed. The scent of aged parchment, herbs, and something vaguely metallic lingers in the air. The classroom feels strangely quiet, as if it has been waiting, watching. Tonight, the room is empty, its usual inhabitants, eager or apprehensive students, long gone, leaving only the hush of the flickering flames and the soft drip of condensation from the stone ceiling. Yet, something feels different tonight. The air carries a charged stillness, as though the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for something or someone, and then there it is. A barely perceptible shift in the atmosphere, a soft rustling in the corner where no breeze should be. A single candle flickers, the flame stretching unnaturally before settling once more. Was it a trick of the dim light, or had something just moved? The night is still young, and Hogwarts is filled with secrets, especially in a place like this. Something lingers in the potions classroom, something waiting to be discovered, and so begins our journey into the mysterious secrets of Professor Snape's classroom, a tale of hidden magic, forgotten whispers, and the quiet, unseen forces that shape the very heart of Hogwarts. So settle in, take a deep breath, and allow the magic of the story to unfold. The dim glow of candlelight flickered over the ancient stone walls of Professor Snape's classroom, casting long shadows that swayed like silent watchers. The air was thick with the scent of dried herbs, aged parchment, and the faint metallic tang of potion residue lingering in the crevices of the well-worn desks. The silence of the empty room was broken only by the occasional crackling of the torches along the walls, their flames flickering as if whispering to one another in secret. At the center of the room stood Edwin Holloway, a curious and sharp-minded Ravenclaw student with a quiet fascination for the hidden arts of potion making. His untidy chestnut brown hair fell slightly over his forehead, and behind round glasses, his deep-set blue eyes shimmered with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Unlike some of his housemates, who prided themselves on excelling in theory alone, Edwin found solace in the meticulous process of potion brewing. He had a steady hand, a patient mind, and an appreciation for the unspoken magic that thrived in the precise combination of ingredients. Across the desk from him stood Celeste Fairborn, a Slytherin, known for her composed demeanor and unwavering confidence. Unlike Edwin, she carried an air of quiet ambition, not ruthless, but determined, a girl who understood the delicate balance between intellect and intuition. With her sleek black hair pulled into a loose braid and her emerald green robes draped elegantly over her shoulders, Celeste carried herself with effortless grace. Despite their different houses, Edwin and Celeste had formed an unlikely friendship. While he possessed a mind deeply rooted in books and meticulous experimentation, she had a gift for reading between the lines, for sensing the underlying energy of the magical world that others overlooked. Their combined strengths made them a formidable duo in any classroom, especially in potions, where precision and instinct wove together like threads in a tapestry. Tonight, however, the classroom was empty. No professor to dictate instructions, no bubbling cauldrons brewing common assignments. This was their own secret endeavor, their own quiet pursuit of knowledge. For weeks, Edwin had been uncovering fragments of an old, forgotten recipe, one hidden between the pages of a dust-covered tome buried deep within the restricted section of the library. The parchment had been brittle, the ink faded, but the instructions, what little remained, hinted at something powerful, something lost to time. A potion unlike any other, one that neither of them had seen referenced in any of their coursework. Celeste had been skeptical at first. After all, there was a reason certain knowledge remained buried within the confines of the restricted section. But Edwin's excitement was infectious, and beneath her caution lay a curiosity that she could not ignore. Tonight, as they stood in the heart of the most enigmatic classroom in Hogwarts, their eyes scanned the notes Edwin had copied onto a fresh sheet of parchment. The ingredients listed were unfamiliar, some almost impossible to obtain, but the instructions had hinted at a potion capable of revealing something hidden, something long forgotten. Edwin glanced at Celeste, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Are we really doing this?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Celeste smirked, rolling up the sleeves of her robes. "You've dragged me this far, Holloway. Let's see where this takes us." With a shared glance of determination, they turned toward the vast collection of potion ingredients stacked along the walls. Their journey into the mysteries of Professor Snape's classroom was only beginning. A hush of quiet anticipation filled Professor Snape's abandoned classroom, broken only by the soft rustling of parchment as Edwin Holloway traced his fingers over the delicate script of his notes. The dim candlelight cast flickering shadows over the intricate runes scribbled at the margins, symbols neither he nor Celeste Fairborn fully understood. The instructions, though faded and incomplete, spoke of a lost potion, one that had not been brewed for centuries. The two students stood before a dust-covered cauldron, its iron surface worn with age. A table lined with rare and questionable ingredients lay before them: dried billywig wings, powdered moonstone, crushed asphodel roots, and a vial of liquid so dark it seemed to swallow the candlelight around it. Edwin adjusted his glasses, pushing them further up the bridge of his nose. "If I'm reading this correctly," he murmured, tapping the parchment, "this potion isn't just an ordinary elixir, it's a revelation draft." Celeste arched a brow. Revelation? She crossed her arms, skepticism shadowing her sharp features. "That sounds a bit ominous, don't you think?" He nodded. "That's what makes it interesting. The text claims that when completed, this potion will unveil hidden knowledge, revealing things long lost or concealed." Celeste's smirk softened into something closer to apprehension. "And you're sure this isn't one of those disastrously illegal potions that got buried in history for a reason?" Edwin exhaled, glancing down at the faded ink. "I mean, not entirely. But look at the ingredients. It's complex, but there's nothing inherently dangerous. And it's not in the standard curriculum, which means it's something different, something Snape might have known about but never taught." Celeste tapped her fingers on the wooden desk, considering. She had an uncanny sense for reading between the lines, for picking up on things others missed. And right now, her instincts told her there was something more to this than Edwin realized. "Fine," she said at last, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's make history then." With a flick of his wand, Edwin lit the fire beneath the cauldron, the soft glow flickering against the stone walls. The potion instructions were fragmented at best, and so much of the process required instinct and careful experimentation. First came the base, moonstone powder, sprinkled into the cauldron's depths, causing the liquid to shimmer like liquid silver. The moment it hit the surface, the air around them grew colder, as though a presence had stirred in the room. Celeste stiffened. "Did you feel that?" Edwin nodded, his fingers hesitating over the next ingredient, asphodel root, ground into a fine dust. "It's just the magic settling," he murmured, though the doubt in his tone was evident. One by one, they added the remaining elements, stirring carefully in counterclockwise motions, following the half-legible instructions with as much precision as possible. The potion swirled, shifting between deep indigo and rich emerald green, a slow, hypnotic dance of color and magic. But something was still missing. "This part here," Edwin pointed to a torn section of parchment where the final ingredient should have been listed. "It's unreadable," Celeste sighed. "Great, so we're brewing a potion that could do anything with an ingredient we don't even know?" Edwin ran a hand through his hair, thinking, there has to be something, some way to figure out what we need. The potion is stable, but incomplete. Celeste's gaze flickered toward the towering shelves of Snape's storage cabinet, filled with jars of preserved herbs, bottled extracts, and aged scrolls. "Maybe the answer is already here," she suggested, stepping toward the shelves. Just as Edwin turned to follow, the cauldron emitted a strange, resonating hum, a sound that sent a ripple through the air, like a note struck on a crystal. Then, a shadow moved. Celeste froze. "Tell me you saw that." Edwin swallowed. He had. A flicker of something in the dim light, a ripple along the wall, The torches lining the walls flickered violently, and then, one by one, they extinguished. The room plunged into near darkness. A pulse of cold air rushed through the space, as though something had been awakened. The potion in the cauldron had stopped swirling. It was perfectly still, its shimmering surface reflecting their pale faces. Edwin's breath hitched. This isn't normal. Before Celeste could respond, a whisper filled the air, low, distant, as though echoing from the depths of the stone walls. It wasn't in English. It wasn't in Latin. It was something ancient, something watching them. Edwin and Celeste stepped back instinctively, but the moment Celeste moved, her shadow didn't follow. Instead, it lingered, slightly detached from her movements, stretching unnaturally along the floor. A chill raced down her spine. "Edwin," she whispered, "something's wrong." Before he could respond, the air shifted again, and a shape began to form within the cauldron's depths. Not a reflection, not light, a figure. Their faces drained of color as the silhouette of a man emerged within the potion's shimmering surface. His features were indistinct, blurred by rippling mist, but his presence was undeniable. Celeste's fingers instinctively curled around her wand. "Who? What is that?" Edwin swallowed. I think it's Snape." A beat of silence. Then the voice whispered again, low, urgent. "Stop." The single word sent a shockwave of energy through the room, rattling the glass jars on the shelves. The cauldron shuddered, its contents flaring with an eerie glow before fading back to darkness. Edwin grabbed Celeste's arm, his pulse hammering. "We need to stop." Celeste didn't argue. Her instincts screamed that whatever they had just summoned, whatever they had woken up, was something that was never meant to be disturbed. Without hesitation, Edwin seized a vial of purified water, pouring it into the cauldron to douse the potion's magic. A rush of energy burst outward, sending both students stumbling back. The air crackled with residual magic, the torches flaring back to life. The room fell silent once more. No whispers, no shadows. The figure in the cauldron was gone. Edwin and Celeste locked eyes, both of them breathless, shaken, but alive. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Celeste exhaled. "That wasn't just any potion," she murmured. Edwin slowly nodded. "No, that was something older." He looked down at the tattered parchment, eyes tracing the faded ink. "And I don't think we were the first ones to try making it." Celeste frowned. "What do you mean?" Edwin hesitated before turning the page over. On the back of the parchment, hidden beneath layers of faded ink, was a signature, one that had almost vanished with time, but it was still readable. Severus Snape. Celeste stared at it, her throat tightening. Snape tried to brew this? Edwin's expression darkened. Not just tried, he left a warning. They hadn't discovered a lost potion. They had stumbled upon something Snape had deliberately erased from history, something that was never meant to be completed, and now they had awoken its secrets. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across Snape's abandoned classroom, its air still thick with the lingering traces of forgotten magic. Edwin Holloway and Celeste Fairborn stood side by side, their breath steadying after the unnerving experience they had just endured. The failed potion experiment had stirred something ancient, something they couldn't explain. Yet, the mystery was far from over. The parchment they had found, the one bearing Snape's name, was proof that their revelation draft had a hidden past, one the late potions master had seemingly tried to erase. Edwin rolled the parchment between his fingers, his mind racing. This wasn't just a potion he experimented with, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. He buried it. Celeste, still shaken, exhaled sharply, and we just tried to unearth it. The torches along the walls crackled softly, casting their dim glow over the stacks of forgotten books, scattered glass vials, and jars of preserved ingredients. Dust motes swirled in the air, illuminated like tiny stars in the dim candlelight. Celeste frowned at the cauldron, its contents now reduced to a pool of dark, motionless liquid. The glow from before had disappeared, the unnatural hum now silenced, but the weight of what had happened still pressed against the room. "We should leave this alone," she said finally, crossing her arms, "before we make things worse." Edwin hesitated. His heart told him she was right, that they had barely escaped something unknown. And yet, what if this is what Snape wanted? He argued, gesturing toward the parchment. What if he meant for someone to find this? Celeste gave him a dry look. Right, because Snape, of all people, was the sentimental type. Edwin sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine, but don't you want to know why? Why he stopped? Why he left this behind? Celeste tapped her fingers on the wooden table, torn between logic and curiosity. She had always prided herself on knowing when to walk away from a dangerous mystery, but something about this felt unfinished. Her gaze drifted to the cabinet at the back of the room, its doors slightly ajar. Rows of vials and old scrolls lined the shelves, untouched for years. Maybe the answer isn't in the potion, she mused. Maybe it's in what Snape left behind. Edwin followed her line of sight. The storage cabinet? She nodded. If Snape really abandoned this potion, he would have left a reason why. Hesitation flickered in Edwin's expression, but before he could protest, Celeste had already moved. The moment she placed her hand on the cabinet doors, a soft pulse of energy rippled through the air. She pulled her fingers back instinctively, blinking. "Did you feel that?" Edwin swallowed. Yeah. It was subtle, not a defensive charm, not an alarm, but something else, a layer of protective magic woven into the very wood of the cabinet. Celeste cautiously placed her hand back on the handle, half expecting a magical barrier to knock her away. But this time, the magic didn't resist. It recognized her touch, almost as if it had been waiting for someone to open it. With a slow creak, the doors swung open. Inside, the shelves were filled with aged scrolls, neatly stacked but coated in dust. Small vials of dried ingredients sat untouched, their labels faded but still legible. And there, tucked in the very back, was a leather-bound journal. Edwin reached for it, his fingers brushing against the old, worn cover. Celeste peered over his shoulder as he carefully lifted the book from its resting place, its weight heavier than it looked. The edges of the pages were yellowed with age, the spine cracked from years of use. Without a word, Edwin flipped to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable, Severus Snape's. Celeste inhaled sharply as they scanned the first few lines. To the one who finds this, if you are reading these words, you have already gone too far. A chill crept up Edwin's spine. Well, that's not ominous at all. Celeste's eyes darkened. Keep reading. Edwin swallowed and turned the page. The ink had faded in places, but Snape's voice was still unmistakable. This potion was not abandoned out of failure. It was abandoned out of necessity. Some things are not meant to be uncovered, not even by the most skilled witches and wizards. Celeste clenched her jaw. So he did leave a warning. Edwin kept reading. The Revelation draft does not merely reveal knowledge. It reveals what is hidden. It awakens what should remain undisturbed. I should have destroyed my research. I can only hope I have hidden it well enough. A heavy silence filled the room. Celeste finally exhaled. Well, that answers that. Edwin's mind whirled. Snape had tried this before. He had brewed the same potion. He had witnessed its effects and had decided it was too dangerous to continue. What exactly did he see? Edwin murmured. What did it show him? Celeste rubbed her temples. I don't want to find out. But Edwin wasn't so sure. His gaze drifted toward the cauldron, still filled with the unfinished potion. They had stopped the process just in time, but had they already set something in motion? Snape had believed this magic was dangerous enough to bury, and yet Edwin couldn't shake the feeling that Snape had also left just enough behind for someone to follow in his footsteps. Why? What had he wanted someone to uncover? And more importantly, who had he wanted to find it? Celeste suddenly stiffened. Edwin, she whispered, voice barely audible. He turned to her, following her wide-eyed gaze toward the far corner of the room. There, in the dim light, was a shadow that did not belong. It was not cast by the candlelight. It was not put by them. It was watching. Celeste's fingers twitched toward her wand, but before she could move, the shadow shifted, a slow, almost deliberate movement, as if it knew it had been noticed. The torches flickered violently, and for a brief second, the room was plunged into utter darkness. A low, distant whisper curled through the air. Not in English, not in Latin, something older. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadow was gone. The torches flickered back to life. The classroom was empty. Edwin and Celeste did not speak, but they both knew whatever they had awakened wasn't finished yet, and it was waiting for them to continue. A tense silence settled over Snape's abandoned classroom, where Edwin and Celeste stood frozen. The shadowy presence they had glimpsed moments ago had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, but the unease it left behind still lingered. The parchment in Edwin's hands trembled slightly as he exhaled, attempting to steady himself. Celeste's fingers were still gripping her wand, her knuckles white. That wasn't just our imagination, she murmured. Edwin shook his head. No, and whatever it was, I don't think it wants us to stop. He turned his gaze back to Snape's journal, its pages worn but filled with the unmistakable, sharp, slanted handwriting of the late potions master. The warning had been clear. Some knowledge was never meant to be uncovered. And yet, Hadn't Snape left just enough breadcrumbs for them to follow? Celeste took a slow breath, rubbing her temples. We have a choice, Edwin. We can leave this alone, pretend we never found this, or we can keep going. Edwin hesitated. His instincts screamed that turning back was the wise option, but there was something about this mystery, the puzzle Snape had left behind, that he couldn't walk away from. He met Celeste's gaze. Do you want to stop? She pressed her lips together, considering. She had always been the logical one, the one who weighed risks carefully before diving into anything unknown. But she had also never been able to resist a mystery that called to her. Finally, she sighed. If we're doing this, we do it carefully. No more reckless experimenting. Edwin grinned. Agreed. Celeste carefully flipped through the remaining pages of Snape's journal, scanning the entries with sharp eyes. The early notes detailed his initial fascination with the Revelation draft, the way it unlocked hidden truths buried within Hogwarts itself. But as the entries went on, Snape's writing became more erratic, his tone shifting from clinical observations to something more unsettled. The potion is more than I anticipated. It does not merely reveal, it calls to what should remain unseen. I have tried to halt its effects, but it resists. Celeste's fingers tightened around the edges of the parchment. This potion didn't just reveal knowledge to him, it awoke something. Edwin frowned. That whisper we heard, could it have been connected? They exchanged a glance. The final entry was incomplete. The ink smudged as if Snape had abruptly abandoned his writing. But beneath the unfinished sentence, a strange sketch had been drawn onto the parchment, a rough diagram of Hogwarts, with specific locations marked in faded ink. Celeste traced her fingers over it. This is a map. Edwin leaned closer, scanning the markings. There were several spots highlighted, but one in particular stood out. A place deep beneath the castle, beyond the dungeons where Snape's classroom resided. The Undercroft, Edwin whispered. Celeste's brows furrowed. The Undercroft? That place hasn't been accessed in years. Exactly, Edwin said, which means that's exactly where Snape didn't want anyone to go. They fell into another silence, both absorbing the weight of what they had uncovered. The journal had led them to a choice. Abandon the mystery, leave the Undercroft untouched, bury the secret along with Snape's warning, and walk away. Follow the map, venture into the forgotten depths of Hogwarts, and uncover the truth Snape had tried to hide. Celeste inhaled deeply. We're really doing this, aren't we? Edwin nodded. We've come this far. With that, they carefully rolled up the journal, tucked it away, and prepared themselves for the journey into the unknown. The corridors of Hogwarts were eerily quiet as Edwin and Celeste made their way toward the forgotten passage leading to the Undercroft. Torches flickered along the stone walls, casting long shadows as they walked. The school had always been alive with magic, but tonight it felt different, as if the very walls were holding their breath, watching them. They approached an ancient tapestry near the lower dungeons. A dusty, nearly forgotten relic depicting a serpent entwined around a silver chalice. Celeste narrowed her eyes. This wasn't here last year. Edwin reached out hesitantly, brushing his fingers over the frayed edges of the fabric. The moment he touched it, A faint pulse of magic radiated through the air, like the soft chime of a bell. Then, the tapestry shifted. Before their eyes, the fabric peeled away from the stone, revealing a hidden archway leading into the darkness below. Celeste swallowed. Well, I guess we found the way in. Edwin let out a slow breath. No turning back now. They stepped forward, their footsteps echoing as they passed through the archway. The air grew cooler, laced with the faint scent of old parchment, damp stone, and something unplaceable, something ancient. A set of spiral stone stairs descended into darkness, disappearing into the depths of the castle. Celeste lit her wand. Lumos. The glow cast a pale light ahead of them, illuminating the intricate carvings along the stone walls, symbols neither of them recognized, etched with precision as if recording a history lost to time. The whispers in the air returned, softer now, like the faint rustling of old pages turning. Edwin's stomach tightened. Whatever was down here, they weren't the first to find it. At the bottom of the stairwell, the passageway opened into a large, arched chamber. Unlike the cold stone corridors above, this place felt untouched. The walls were lined with wooden bookshelves, their contents sealed beneath layers of dust and age. But at the very end of the room stood a single, massive wooden door, reinforced with iron bars and carved with ancient runes. Celeste's breath hitched. That's not normal. Edwin stepped forward cautiously, inspecting the door. There was no handle, no keyhole, just the intricate carvings, almost shimmering under the wand light. Celeste hesitated. Do you recognize any of these symbols? Edwin shook his head. No, but I know one thing. He ran his fingers over the runes, feeling the faint pulse of energy beneath his touch. This door wasn't made to be opened. Celeste exhaled, stepping back. Which means... Edwin turned to her, expression unreadable. It means whatever's behind it is exactly what Snape was trying to hide. They had followed the clues, uncovered Snape's warnings, and reached the threshold of the forbidden. Now, the final choice was theirs. Did they turn back, leaving the door closed and Snape's secret buried? Or did they open the door, stepping into the unknown and facing whatever lay beyond? Edwin turned to Celeste. What do we do? Celeste stared at the door for a long moment before setting her jaw. We open it. Edwin nodded, taking a deep breath. Together, they raised their wands, ready to reveal what Hogwarts had kept hidden for years. The ancient door loomed before Edwin and Celeste, its intricate runes glowing faintly under the soft light of their wands. A strange hum resonated in the air, as though the stone chamber itself was breathing, waiting, listening. Edwin ran his fingers over the engravings, feeling a faint pulse of magic beneath his touch. This door wasn't just sealed, he murmured. It was meant to keep something inside. Celeste swallowed. And yet, Snape left clues leading us right here. They exchanged a glance, the unspoken weight of their decision settling over them. Then, with a deep breath, Edwin raised his wand, tracing the symbols with careful precision. Celeste followed, whispering a soft Alohomora. The runes flared with a sudden burst of light, pulsing once, twice. Then the heavy iron bars slid apart with a deep, resonant groan. Dust rained from above as the door creaked open, revealing a long-forgotten chamber beyond. A strange golden mist curled along the floor, swirling as if alive. The walls were lined with rows upon rows of bookshelves, their spines ancient, crumbling, and yet untouched by time. But at the center of the room, resting upon a single stone pedestal, was a small obsidian vial. Celeste's breath caught. Is that? Edwin stepped closer, heart pounding. The revelation draft. The vial shimmered under the dim light, its inky contents swirling in a way that defied natural movement. Edwin felt a strange pull, an unspoken invitation to reach forward, to uncork it, to know. Celeste's hand shot out, stopping him. "Wait," she said, voice tight. "Look." Near the pedestal, a final page of Snape's journal lay open, its writing sharp and deliberate. Celeste lifted it with trembling fingers, her voice barely above a whisper as she read aloud. "This is my final warning. The potion does not simply reveal, it unravels. Truth is not always meant to be known. If you have come this far, you must make a choice. Drink and see, or walk away and forget." A heavy silence settled over them. Edwin exhaled slowly. Snape knew. He knew what this potion did. He left it here for a reason. Celeste's grip on the parchment tightened. But why leave it accessible at all? If it was dangerous, he could have destroyed it. A soft whisper curled through the chamber, so faint it almost wasn't there. Not all secrets should remain buried. Celeste's head snapped up. "Did you hear that?" Edwin nodded, pulse racing. The whisper had no source, no voice, yet it had spoken directly into their minds. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The small, delicate vial sat between them, a silent challenge. Celeste's voice was hesitant. "Do we?" Edwin didn't answer immediately. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the journal, flipping through the pages. His mind swirled with memories of Snape, the man who had guarded his secrets fiercely, yet had left behind enough for them to find this moment. Had he wanted them to stop, or had he wanted them to see what he had seen? A deep breath, a silent decision. Edwin uncorked the vial. A thin wisp of violet mist curled upward, and as the scent of aged parchment and rain-damp stone filled the air, the room shuddered, like the castle itself had drawn in a breath. The potion glowed, and then the chamber vanished. The darkness was absolute at first. Then light flickered in the distance, torches lining a narrow corridor. Edwin and Celeste found themselves standing in a different Hogwarts, one that felt older, colder, and steeped in forgotten magic. A shadow moved ahead, a tall, robed figure, his black cloak billowing behind him. Celeste's breath hitched. "Snape." The figure moved swiftly, his movements purposeful, yet tense, as though he were pursued by something unseen. They followed, invisible spectators, in a memory that did not belong to them. Snape entered a hidden chamber, much like the one they had just left, but this time there was another figure waiting inside. Dumbledore. Edwin's heart pounded as Snape approached the headmaster, his voice sharp with urgency. This must be sealed away. The potion does not merely uncover, it threads into magic itself. If it falls into the wrong hands. Dumbledore's expression was grave. And yet, you have kept it. Snape's fingers curled into fists, because knowledge, once known, cannot be undone. Celeste swallowed hard. They were arguing about the potion. Dumbledore looked at Snape for a long moment. Then, with a quiet sigh, he said, "Then we must leave a choice." The room blurred, twisted, then shattered back into darkness. Edwin gasped as his mind snapped back into the present, the chamber returning around them. The potion vial in his hand was now empty, its magic spent. Celeste pressed a hand to her temple. That wasn't just a vision, that was real. Edwin nodded, his mind still racing. Snape had hidden this potion for a reason. He had left it behind, not to destroy knowledge, but to offer a choice to those who found it. And now, Edwin and Celeste were left with that same choice. The room was silent once more, the whispering magic having settled, waiting for them to decide. Celeste looked at Edwin. "What do we do?" The echoes of Snape's last warning burned in his mind. Truth is not always meant to be known, but neither was it meant to be forgotten. Edwin reached for Snape's journal, his decision made. "We write it down," he murmured. "We leave the choice for the next who finds it." Celeste hesitated, then slowly nodded. As they stepped away from the pedestal, the runes on the ancient door began to glow again, the iron bars shifting back into place, sealing the chamber once more. The secret would remain, not lost, not hidden, but waiting. This section builds the peak of the story, revealing Snape's hidden past, the purpose of the potion, and offering a moral dilemma. Should knowledge be buried, or should it be left for those willing to seek it? The heavy stone door slid shut behind Edwin and Celeste, its ancient runes fading into darkness as the chamber sealed itself once more. The silence that followed was deep, almost sacred, as if the very walls of Hogwarts had drawn a breath and exhaled a long-held secret. Celeste let out a shaky sigh, her fingers still gripping Snape's journal. "It feels like we weren't supposed to find this," she murmured, her voice hushed in the dimly lit corridor. Edwin nodded, running a hand through his hair. "And yet, Snape left just enough for us to uncover it, like he wanted us to understand, but not to take it too far." They stood for a moment, in quiet contemplation, the echoes of their discovery settling in their minds like dust in an undisturbed library. The air around them still carried the faint whisper of magic, but it was gentler now, no longer pushing them forward, only guiding them back. Celeste exhaled and turned toward Edwin. "We should go." With a final glance at the sealed chamber, they made their way through the dimly lit dungeon corridors, their footsteps soft against the ancient stone. The torches flickered as they passed, their glow steady and warm, as if Hogwarts itself was watching over them, ensuring their safe return. As they climbed the spiral staircase that led back to the main levels of Hogwarts, the air grew lighter, the weight of the discovery easing from their shoulders. By the time they reached the entrance hall, the castle had shifted back into its familiar self, warm, mysterious, and endlessly alive with magic. Outside the great stained glass windows, the moon hung low over the forbidden forest, casting a silver glow over the grounds. A soft breeze rustled through the ancient trees, carrying with it the scents of damp earth and midnight air. Celeste hesitated at the base of the staircase leading to the Gryffindor Tower. It's strange, isn't it, that something so powerful was hidden away for so long. Edwin studied the flickering candlelight along the halls. Maybe some things are meant to be discovered in their own time, when someone is ready. Celeste nodded thoughtfully, her fingers tracing the spine of Snape's journal. We should write down everything we remember, the warnings, the visions, everything. If anyone ever stumbles across this again, they'll know. Edwin gave her a small smile. Agreed. But first, we need rest. Let's get back to the common room before Filch finds us wandering past curfew. Celeste laughed softly, the tension in her shoulders easing. Good idea. Together, they continued up the stairs, the warmth of the castle guiding them home. The Gryffindor common room was quiet and peaceful when they arrived. The fire in the great hearth had dimmed to glowing embers, casting long shadows along the walls. The chairs and sofas, usually filled with students, were now empty, their cushions slightly sunken as if waiting for their return. Edwin collapsed into one of the armchairs, letting out a deep sigh. I don't think I've ever been this tired. Celeste took a seat across from him, her hands resting in her lap. But it was worth it. Edwin reached for a blank parchment on the side table, dipping his quill into the inkwell. He hesitated for a moment, then wrote the first line. The secrets of Snape's classroom were never meant to be found, but for those who do, remember this: knowledge is powerful, but so is knowing when to let go. Celeste watched him write, then added her own line below his. What we found was not just a potion, but a choice, one that must always remain in the hands of those who seek it. They exchanged a quiet smile, feeling the weight of the night finally lift. The fire crackled softly, its warmth wrapping around them like an old, comforting spell. Beyond the windows, Hogwarts stood tall against the night, its towers and turrets bathed in the gentle glow of the moon. Somewhere in the depths of the castle, behind a sealed door, a forgotten secret rested once more, waiting for the day it would be needed again. But for now, all was still, and as the fire continued to burn low, Edwin and Celeste finally allowed themselves to drift into sleep, wrapped in the safety and warmth of their home within Hogwarts. The fire in the Gryffindor common room had burned low, its warm glow flickering softly against the stone walls. Edwin and Celeste sat in the cozy silence, the weight of the night's discoveries settling into something softer, something that no longer felt overwhelming, but instead comforting, like a memory waiting to be fully understood in the morning light. Celeste leaned back against the armchair, her fingers resting lightly on the cover of Snape's journal. It's strange, she murmured, all the secrets hidden in this castle, all the stories lost in time, and yet Hogwarts still stands, as steady as ever. Edwin smiled sleepily, his head resting against the cushions. Maybe that's the magic of it. No matter what's hidden or forgotten, Hogwarts always keeps moving forward. Outside the window, the sky was shifting into deeper shades of indigo, the stars twinkling like scattered diamonds above the towers. The castle itself hummed with quiet energy, ancient and alive, as though it, too, was breathing in the stillness of the night. The world beyond their small, fire-lit sanctuary felt vast and full of possibilities. The hidden chamber they had discovered, the potions locked away, the whispers of knowledge long past, they were all threads in the great, endless tapestry of Hogwarts. And though the mystery would remain, they had played their part. They had found something. They had understood. A drowsy warmth settled over them, lulling their thoughts into a slower rhythm. Celeste yawned, tucking the journal beneath her arm. "We should get some rest." Edwin chuckled, nodding as he stretched his legs. "Yeah, before we fall asleep, right here." The common room had always been a place of comfort, a space between the wonders of the day and the dreams of the night. As they made their way toward their dormitories, the warmth of the fire followed them, wrapping them in its final embers. Before disappearing up the stairs, Edwin glanced back at Celeste. "Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out." Celeste smiled, her eyes heavy with sleep. "We always do." And with that, they disappeared into the quiet halls of Hogwarts, leaving only the soft crackle of the fire behind them. The castle, ever watchful, stood in peaceful silence. Outside, the moon continued its gentle path across the sky, casting silver light over the ancient walls. And deep within the heart of the school, behind a forgotten door, a secret rested once more, waiting, like all things in Hogwarts, for the right moment to awaken again. For now, though, all was calm, all was still, and as Edwin and Celeste drifted into sleep, so too did Hogwarts, wrapped in the quiet hush of the night, holding its magic close until morning.